say something?
How about now?
You're there now.
Okay.
I
Uh,
Audio is going to be the death of me. Like someday you're going to just
Still,
find me
yeah,
buried in audio equipment, unable to get anything to work, and my heart will give out.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, how long have we been suffering from this? 15 years. We have a chronic
It's much
audio
longer than
problem.
that. We have been doing
Yeah,
this for going on 17 years.
yeah. So, like, how long can the human body withstand year after year of chronic audio problems?
Oh man,
It can't last forever.
no.
So, um, yeah, so I was saying that I might have to leave suddenly if a very important delivery comes, which is a little four-wheel drive vehicle with a snowplow, so we can clear our driveway from getting snowed under every for a couple of months every year. So yeah, we've gone through 3 years now where we're just cut off from human society for about 2 months at a time every winter. And this winter we're like, that's it, no more.
We are
Got to figure out a
done.
solution. Yeah, and so I was driving down our road and sort of seeing what everybody did, and everybody uses a quad with a little snowplow on the front.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna have a little quad with a snowplow on the front.
that's awesome.
So
That's also like a really good tool for just like moving stuff around your property that
yeah,
you can't handle on your own.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, it's got all and it has a fairly light footprint. So yeah, things should be going really well. But I mean, we've just had so many cool things. So we've had a pair of barn swallows show up and have set up shop in our eaves,
That's so
which is
cool.
so cool. Yeah. And we had Roosevelt elk. So these are
What are
the
those?
second large, well, they're elk,
Yes.
but and I don't know if there's like many different kinds of elk, but in North America, it's Roosevelt elk are the kind of elk that we see. Um, but we have them on Vancouver Island, and they're the
That's
second largest animal on
behind
land
moose.
animal behind moose. Yeah, so moose are the biggest,
Moose are
but
terrifying.
elk. Oh yeah, a moose is I don't know, is a 18 wheeler going by. But a like a full male elk with a full rack of antlers is a sight to behold. We
Oh,
didn't have that. We
yes.
had we had a bunch of females, but they're merely, I don't know, 8 feet at the head. They're giant. They're huge. And but the full male looks like a tree walking down the road.
So
So people are saying that my volume is 200% that of yours.
cool. Okay, I can fix both these things.
Okay.
So I'm going to take my audio and I'm going to crank it. Oh, mine's set at 90. So let's set mine up to 105. And I'll transfer that over so I can see. And then I'm going to find your audio
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
You're
going
gonna
to crank
try
it down to 95.
and pair them up.
Yup. All right, so
Okay.
say something.
Can you hear me now?
We're at the same level now.
Okay. Well, let's get started. And that way, if I do have to leave, if the delivery arrives, you know how it is. They're like,
Yeah.
can we deliver at some point during the day? Yes, you can.
I,
I will. I
yes.
will wait your arrival. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, hold on.
And just to be clear,
Yes.
this is the penultimate, right? We got one more
Yep.
episode next week. Okay.
Oh, I have one more thing I have to open. Shoot. Ah, Windows. So many of them. I cannot remember book titles and authors and content. Pick two. And so I took notes.
I wrote notes too.
I just need to open my notes. I have everything else open. All right. I am pressing record.
All right.
Once I
All right.
find
Let's
my
let this
audio
record.
software, there it is. I am pressing record and it is recording the thing, and I'm
Okay.
recording the video and it is recording the thing. All
Okay.
right.
Here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 724. Okay. Cool, because it's 2024 summer read. Okay. Astronomy Cast, episode 724. Summer reads for 2024. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I am doing well. I am finding a stupid amount of joy in the little fact that the last episode of the season is 725. I don't know why that is such a pleasing thing. The brain
Yeah.
just likes certain numbers, and apparently my brain likes 725. But yeah,
Hmm.
we have one more episode this season. One more
Yes.
episode. But this
Yes.
summer we're actually going to be doing some remastering of some of our old episodes and things like that, so the feed will stay active throughout the summer.
There will be content.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's almost time for our summer hiatus, a time to catch up on all that reading. And we'll give you some book recommendations and what we're hoping to read during the summer. And we'll talk about it in a second, but it's time for a break. And we're back. All right. So this is sort of, I mean, I don't know if we've gone back and have we done this every summer just before we break?
We've recommended something for the summer, either things to go out and observe, things to watch for. And right now, I feel like these space agencies are utterly unpredictable, and recommending that people stay tuned to watch this or that is not reasonable. There are no particularly outstanding meteor showers without a bright moon this summer. So books are where it's at.
Okay, all right. Well, let's just take turns and talk about some recent books that we've read and enjoyed and would recommend.
So, do you want me to go first, or do you want
you
to go
first? You go
okay.
first. You go first.
So I'm going to start by recommending, because I know our audience is full of Gen Xers like us, Alex White's The Salvager series. This is the only book series I've ever encountered that actually expresses what it's like to be not exactly young and trying to just make it through the day in outer space. So you have people getting you need to exercise more, you need to, and it's just like there in the background of super interesting plots, some twists that I haven't seen before in terms of how people interact with technology. So you have these really novel science fiction concepts, a bit of fantasy and magic thrown in for flavor, and it's middle-aged folks like me. I am here for it.
Right. Now, how many books are there?
There's 3. So you can get through all of them. They're already out. It is done. And that's my favorite kind of thing to recommend.
All right. That sounds great. I'm gonna take some notes. I got some books to read. Now, I think this time last year I was raving about Alastair Reynolds and his Revelation Space series, and that got me inspired to finally read the Culture series. And so for those, and that's 10 books.
Yeah.
So I read 4 books in the Revelation Space series, plus there's some additional stuff. And I also read the Culture series, so that's so now we're up to 16 books.
Yeah.
No problem. And this is always the problem.
People and I've done these too. We've gone on this journey just in opposite orders.
Okay, yeah. So, but I loved Alastair Reynolds so much that I sort of have continued on reading others of his books. And in fact, the one that you've read that I haven't read yet is Pushing Ice. My wife read Pushing Ice and she loved it. And so I'm going to read it, but the one that I read is called House of Suns. And this is a standalone book, although it sort of has a connection to some short stories that he did. And it's very similar to Revelation Space and very similar to the Culture series. It's this sort of super advanced civilization that has been around for millions of years, spanning the galaxy, and is up to shenanigans. And the gist is that these people are clones of one person who started off on Earth and sent versions of herself across the entire galaxy. And then someone is trying to murder them, and they're sort of discovering the horrible things that they did as a society that has created these implications and revelations, and has sort of this interaction between humans attempting to strike a balance with the machine civilizations that exist, some of which are more powerful or less powerful, and more wise and less wise. And so if you kind of enjoy, again, back to like Mass Effect, Culture Series, and if you read the Revelation space, this is in that same genre, and that's House of Suns. I really enjoyed it. But it's standalone, so it doesn't fit within, but it also feels pretty similar.
So just to be clear, the culture is actually Ian Banks.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Alastair Reynolds, who you're talking about,
He wrote
is
the Revelation space series.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
he wrote House of Suns.
yes,
And it's but so if
absolutely
you
amazing.
like if you hear me raving about Revelation space and you're like, now I've read those, what's next? I mean, I think the default answer is read everything
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
by
It's
Alastair
true.
Reynolds, but I really enjoyed House of Suns as a standalone book, but with just mind-bending ideas in it. At one point, a person is tortured or interrogated by being like cut into microscopic slices and turned into a floor
As
that
one
they can
does.
then, as one does, they can walk around. It's pretty horrific, but also pretty fiendish. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
I love his stuff consistently. He
yeah,
also
totally.
did the Dreyfus Emergencies, but
Oh,
Revelation, the Revenger series. That's the other one he did.
oh,
That's
this
really
is just
good.
gonna be my whole life. Yeah, yeah. That'll be next summer. I'll be like, okay, I read all these other books by Alastair Reynolds.
So
So
Poseidon's Children are my favorites. So there's those as well.
okay, all right,
Sorry, I'm just
all right.
cutting in here with ideas all about
Yeah,
Alastair
yeah, yeah,
Reynolds. And
yeah,
since
yeah.
we've brought up Ian Banks has a new book coming out this summer. Somewhere on my screen, I wrote down the date. And of course, I'm
Well,
not
he
able
passed
to.
away, so I'm not sure how this is happening.
All right, I may have hallucinated this
Like
because
10
now
years
I'm
ago.
not seeing it on my screen. One moment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I am ruining the day for Richard, who has to edit these things.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just the Audible book is about to
Hmm.
come out.
Anyway, let's move on. Why don't you give me your
Yeah,
next book?
let's just move on. All right. So the the thing I also sometimes you just have to read things that bring you joy. And Becky Chambers' books are ones that have plots, have adventure, have depth of character, but are not dystopian, are not wars. They're just like romps and ideas. So uh, I've read much, but not all of her Wayfarer series, and I'm going to finish it. And I've only read the first book in her Monk and Robot series, which has this really interesting premise of what if one day the AI just like got over us and walked away into the woods and left us behind?
Right, like Her, like the movie Her.
But like all the AIs, all of them.
Yeah, yeah, that was Her. But yeah,
Okay.
that sounds great.
And so I clearly haven't seen her in long enough to remember any details at all.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Becky Chambers' Monk and Robot series then has one of the robots that comes back
Mm.
and wants to get to know humanity again and see how it's changed in this new without them future. And so
Right.
that's also something I'm going to finish reading this summer.
I, there's an idea in the Culture series where whenever they make a super artificial intelligence, when they just like create one, it immediately leaves the universe
I'd
every
forgotten that
time.
part.
Yeah, yeah, they just immediately go nope and disappear from the universe. That they become incredibly intelligent, and so the only way that you can actually have an artificial intelligence kick around is to have it be born into kind of a simpler state, and then have it grow up and have it be embodied, and still most of them nope out as soon as they get smart enough. So there's something wrong with the universe that we just aren't smart enough to understand what it lacks. That sounds great. All right, I'm going to recommend a book, but first, time for another break. And we're back. So I'm going to recommend a kind of thriller series. So it's a two-part series called Demon and Freedom by the writer Danial Suarez. And the gist of this, back to your artificial intelligence idea, is that a computer programmer has created this big online game and has terminal cancer, and after he dies, he releases a demon into the world, a sort of, a computer process that is essentially super intelligent and then begins manipulating human beings to some nefarious purpose. And there's a lot of just great ideas about how a computer program could interact with human society. In that it sets up all of these incentives for human beings to get rewarded to play ball and to receive immense punishment if they don't play ball. And so you can see that human beings are actually very easy to manipulate. And then you have people who can then manufacture things and create things, but then the AI is developing new designs for things. And so you get these like super bikes, like Japanese crotch rockets with blades that come out, and they're completely autonomous and can just make quick work of soldiers and stuff. And people start to act like ants, just part of this larger node and network. And so
That is not uplifting summer reading, Fraser.
Well, I didn't say it was uplifting.
That's true.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was the requirement.
It was
I don't
not.
read uplifting.
It was absolutely
No.
not.
Okay.
No.
All right,
it was
fine.
absolutely not.
And that's like the first book, and then the second book takes this really interesting turn, and you start to understand what was the purpose of this whole thing, and that in fact it's not for domination in the ways you understand it. It's more complicated. I don't want to spoil it, but anyway, and it's interesting because the book is now probably 10 years old, and yet a lot of the ideas that are presented in the book are starting to come to fruition in understanding how some of this stuff might come together. So yeah, so the books are called Demon, like Daemon, and Daemon, and Freedom, and that's by Danial Suarez. And a lot of people swear by tons of other Danial Suarez books. So these are the only two that I've read, but other people have recommended other ones.
All right. So along the lines of not your uplifting summer reads, I've been noticing that more and more of the stuff that I read as just short stories from Cory Doctorow is just a little too close to reality in this world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversations I want to have with people that I feel reading more of his books through to completion instead of noping out partway through because they're a little too close to reality. I need to human up and not nope out on Cory Doctorow books. So one of my homework assignments to myself this summer is to read a lot more Cory Doctorow so that I can better articulate a lot of the concerns I have with the direction that technology and copyright and capitalism are all going in. But mixed in with reading Cory Doctorow, I'm going to read Master and Apprentice, which is a Star Wars book, and Brotherhood, which is a Star Wars book, respectively by Claudia Gray and Mike Chen. So this is must read Cory Doctorow and then allow myself friendly nothing of a Star Wars book. It's not nothing of a Star Wars book. It's just like a Star Wars book. And then read more Cory Doctorow and then read more Star Wars. So
right. But you're telling us that the books you're going to read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry. This is
no
what I'm telling you is there's a whole list of Cory Doctorow books I have started to read. I've read many of his short stories and I have not completed them because they hurt the soul with their truthiness.
Right.
And I need to find the personal courage to make it through a Cory Doctorow novel.
Right. So what I'm reading right now, and I've only read the first book, and let me get that. Sorry, hold on a second here. Okay. So it's the first book in a series called The Machineries of Empire. And the author is a guy named, hold on, guess right. So a guy named Yoon Lee. And the gist of the book, and again, it's clearly I have a type. So this is very much in the culture, in the Revelation space. It's it's a very weird book, and it's hard to understand. But the gist is that it's the main character is a general in an army in some future version of humanity, where humanity is broken up into six large factions, and the factions are warring against each other, and one is becoming heretical to the other factions, and so they need to shut this down. And so this general uh, recommends that they bring out of cold storage one of the most famous generals that ever fought for the empire, who also became a psychopath and killed 1 million people, including all of his own soldiers. And he's just brutally effective, never lost a war, and yet is maybe crazy. And the only way for them to actually bring this general into being is to place his consciousness in the mind of the protagonist. And so she's having to have this sort of nonstop interaction with this general who is incredibly effective, doesn't know why he went crazy, because the backup that she's got was created before he went crazy.
Yeah.
And so he's brutally effective, and also teaching her to accomplish the goals, and you kind of don't know what's going on. So the first book is called The Nine Fox Gambit, and it's very weird, and it's very hard to like that. There's something like psychic, like the more strong the beliefs of the people who are using various gear in this universe, the weirder abilities that gear can have. And so there's kind of no rhyme or reason to how everything works, except adherence to various cultural practices. So it's a very strange book, and it takes a while to get into the rhythm of it, but it's so creative. I'm really enjoying it. So that's the first book. First book is called The Nine Fox Gambit. Second one is called The Raven Stratagem, and the third one's called The Revenant Gun. And they are part of the Machineries of Empire trilogy. So if you want a totally baffling, but there's something there, definitely check out this series.
If you like that, you'd probably like John Scalzi's The Interdependency series with the collapsing empire.
I haven't read that. I mean, obviously I've read Old Man's War, but I haven't
Yeah,
read
this
other.
this is more on his old man's war side of writing style versus his uh like the Agent to the Stars or Red Shirts or
Mm,
Kaiju Preservation Society. Those are like one-off humor
yeah.
with science fiction, but the Collapsing Empire is the first book in the series, and there's so many different ideas in it. And yeah, it is in the same genre, belongs on the same shelf as what you described.
All right, we're going to take another break, and we're back. All right, what else have you got for us? Have you got like a nonfiction book
Yes,
that
that's
you've been reading?
exactly where I was going to go next. You completely read my mind. So the book that I have staring at me that I need to read is Challenger: A True Story of Heroism and Disaster. It's by Adam Higginbotham. It came out in May. It has rave reviews. It is apparently super enlightening, especially as we're watching what's going on with the new human space race. Um, so that's on my summer reading list. And then sitting beside it is Phil Plate's new book, which, of
Mm.
course, Under Alien Skies, A Sightseer's Guide to the Universe, has humor and lightness and goodness, as so much of Phil's writing has, with sarcasm because it's Phil.
So I've got two nonfiction books. So the first one I want to recommend is A City on Mars, and this is by Zach and
Yes.
Kelly Wiener-Smith.
Yes.
And this book was terrific. And the gist was that Zach and Kelly were like, we want to tell the future of human space exploration, how humans, if the goal is to set up a city on Mars and for humans to spread off across the solar system, how is this actually going to happen? And they found, to their utter horror, that there's no good reason to actually set up a human civilization on Mars, that we are woefully unprepared to develop any of the technology that's going to be required. There's no financial reason to do it, and that every single justification that's ever been proposed is inadequate. And so asteroid mining isn't going to be profitable, space-based power, that getting our eggs in multiple baskets isn't going to work. Yeah. And so for a lot of people, they really hate the conclusion that Zach and Kelly came to. I loved it. And I think it's because for a lot of people, when they think about space exploration and they think of that they're like, well, we need to set up, put all our eggs in multiple baskets. That's the justification for doing this. And, and after you sort of read all their explanations, you realize it's not a great reason. Or, we're going to fund it with asteroid mining. Well, you're not. And so, but space is awesome. And the line that runs through the entire book over and over and over again is, we don't need a reason.
Right.
Let's just go to space, because going to space is the place that's next. That space is, by learning to live in space, by learning to go to other worlds, by learning to explore, that brings out the best in humanity, in the way that setting human feet on the surface of the moon back in the Apollo era brought out the best in our engineering and our capability. And so as soon as you're looking for some kind of justification for why to do it, that it's going to be good business, and that business falls apart, then you've lost the momentum.
Yeah.
And I think at the heart of it, that it's that loss of momentum is what really is crushing to people. Yeah. But if you're not trying to justify it, you're just saying, we'll go because we want to explore, because human beings keep looking around the corner to see what's next. Yeah. That is reason enough. Yeah. And so I found the book inspiring. But I know a lot of people, and yet I'm sure if we go back 10 years from now and we talk to each one of these people who were like, I didn't like the book because, they poo-pooed on asteroid mining. You're like, well, asteroid mining didn't pan out. How do you feel now? Right? Yes. Do you still want to go to space? Yes. Okay, great. Because it's awesome, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So anyway, great book.
Yeah. And that whole, we need that joy. We need to channel that joy.
Yeah. We go to space because it's awesome. Yes. Like, that's the beginning and the end. We don't need any other reason. That's sufficient. And I always ask people, okay, let's say that asteroid mining doesn't pan out. Would you still like to go to space? Yes. Why? Okay.
Because.
Is that your reason? Oh, if that reason doesn't pan out, do you still want to go to space? Yes. Why? Okay, if that reason doesn't pan out, yes. Why? And at the end, the very base level, you're going to be like, because I just want to.
Right.
And look, that's good enough. That's it. That's the reason.
All right. So other books. So it's not space, but it has lessons for space. The Deepest Map, The High Stakes Race to Chart the World's Oceans by Laura Throwaway. I'm sure I just destroyed her last name. We know so little about our oceans. We don't have good maps of our oceans. Subs still hit stuff. We don't know what's living down there. There's so much we don't know. And so in the name of planetary exploration, I recommend The Deepest Map as let's look at our world as a planet and what it takes to explore in the inaccessible places. And it just blows my mind on a regular basis that we have dreams of getting ourselves to Europa, digging a sterile hole, dropping a sterile probe, and exploring the oceans of Europa when we are so bad at exploring our own oceans. So start here.
Right, but if you line up the plans for exploring the deep oceans on Earth, like the papers that have proposed ways to explore the deep ocean on Earth, and line them up against the plans to explore the deep oceans on Europa, I think there's more Earth plans than there are Europa plans.
It's true. We just don't talk about them.
Yeah, it frustrates me when people compare, uh, like someone sat down and wrote down some numbers and thought of a way to maybe do something compared to actual practical projects that are
Right.
proceeding. There are prototype
Yeah.
manta ray robotic manta rays that are exploring the oceans. There are all kinds of really cool ideas
Yeah.
that are actually in practice
Yeah.
today. There are boats that are trolling across the ocean with radar scans and sonar scans. Like there is work being done compared to well, I'm about to rant, but I get all the time where I'll, like someone has proposed an idea for removing perchlorates on Mars to make it less toxic. For like if you're going to dig some regolith out of the ground and you want to grow food in it, you want to remove the perchlorates from the
Yes.
Martian regolith. And then I get comments on the YouTube where like, why are we going to even like why do that when we haven't cleaned up Earth? Well, on Earth, we have prototype carbon capture storage. People plant trees. There
Yeah.
are increases of renewable energy. There's methods of monitoring carbon dioxide, stuff from space. And on the removing Martian perchlorates, somebody wrote a paper
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we're working on the not making Earth less, making Earth less toxic. Like, just are people not allowed to think anymore?
No.
Anyway, here's my book, which is The Little Book of Aliens by Adam Frank. And Adam Frank is one of my favorite authors, but also a scientist. And so he does a great job of sort of blending between fulfilling people's desire to understand and think more about where are all the aliens in the universe, but also kind of practically debunking the kinds of evidence that people think are aliens. So I did an interview with Adam Frank, and he's doing some really interesting cutting edge research into the search for aliens, and at the same time does a great job of communicating his work to a lay audience. So I highly recommend The Little Book of Aliens by Adam Frank.
That is excellent.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Hold on. I'm getting an error off of my audio is still recording. We are fine.
Okay, good.
It just put
All
up
right.
a pop up for no good reason. All right. So we have probably more reading than we have hours to read, given we still have
Yes.
day jobs.
Yeah, I'm now reading 2 to 3 books a week,
Yeah.
and still the list stretches out
It just,
into infinity. You just
it's a
gave me
good
a bunch
problem.
more,
I know.
so thank you.
Same. I took
Yeah.
notes the whole time. Um,
All right.
I
Awesome. Thanks, Pamela.
And thank you, Fraser. And thank you to our amazing audience out there. You are what allow all of this to work. And I apparently Googled Ian Banks on top of the list of people I needed to thank this week. So give me just a moment. I am sorry, Rich. All right. So this week, and we have a ton of names to get through because, well, uh, it's our penultimate episode, so we have a ton of names to get through. This week, I would like to thank BoogieNet, Stephen Veit. Why is the 2 names here twice? Our software has screwed up. Sorry, I'm going to have to stare at this for just a moment. It duplicated all of the names. Dear Patreon, I love you. What did you do wrong? Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm having to open everything in a CSV file so that I can do a sort and get the names so I can see the duplicates. This is the sausage being made, people. This is the sausage. I am determined to thank people, and the software is like, no, I shall make it hard. You shall not effectively.
You shall not thank.
No, not today. Disallow. Disallow. All right. Oh, it looks so much better when I sort it correctly. All right. So thank you, everyone. And as a reminder, you can get ad-free versions of the show for joining us on Patreon. I'm going to thank our $10 and up patrons this week, and there's a lot of them to get through. This week, I would like to thank Adam Cottrell, Adam Anise Brown, Adam W., Alex Cohen, Alex Rain, Alexis, Andrew Palestra, Andrew Stevenson, Antisaur, Astro Sets, Bore Androlevsval, Bart Flaherty, Bebop Apocalypse, Benjamin Carrier, Benjamin Davies, Benjamin Mueller, Bob Zatzi, Bob Krell, Boogie Net, Brenda, Brett Mormon, Brian Cagle, Brian Kelby, Bruce Amazine, Bruno Letts, Buzz Parsek, Cami Rassi, and Smansky. Claudia Mastriani, Conrad Haling, Cooper, Daniel Donaldson, Daniel Loosely, Daniel Neffis, Danny McGlitchy, David Bogarty, David Gates, David Trogue, Dean, Diane Philippon, Disastrina, Don Mundus, Dwight Ilk, Ed, Iran Zegrev, Evil Melky, Father Prax, Felix Goot, Frack Stewart, Frode Tenenbaugh, Jeff McDonald, Georgie Ivanov, Greg Schweitzer, Glenn McDonald, Gold, Gordon Dewis, Greg Davis, Greg Vild, Gregory Singleton, Hal McKinney, Harold Bardenhagen, Jay Alexanderson, James Roger, Janelle, Jarvis Earl, Jason Corducas, Jeanette Wink, Jeff Collins, Jeff Wilson, Jeremy Curwell, Jim McGeehan, Jim Schooler, Jim Drake, Joe Holstein, John Drake, Jordan Turner, Jordan Young, Just Me and the Cat, Justin Proctor, Justin S., and Katie Byrne. Thank you all so very much for being part of our patron community.
That sounded very alphabetical.
It was. This is how I sorted the duplicates.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week for the final episode in this season.
Bye-bye, everyone. And then they saved. All right.
So I do have to leave. I got a beep boop message.
All right.
I have to go manage the arrival of this. So
okay.
I'm going to have to wrap things up. So,
I will answer a couple of questions, I guess. No, we'll just be boop off. We're sorry. We'll be back on Monday, though, everyone. So hold your questions for Monday, and we will hang out then.
Or I just put out the call for my patron-only question show. So if you want, go ahead and throw, if you're a patron of Universe Today, now's your chance. Another reminder. I'll be recording in a couple of days. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.